What's up, everybody? My name is John Bautista, and you are listening to the Marriage Savvy Podcast. On today's show, we are addressing an interesting misconception clients may have. And guys, I've heard of this myself. It's that the therapists are perfect. During the show, we are going to ask him why clients should seek out therapists that are doing their own personal work. He's going to point out some dangers that can happen in a session when a therapist isn't doing their own personal work. And lastly, Kim's going to discuss how therapists are just as human as the clients that they see and why connection is our best and greatest tool for personal growth. All that is next, coming up on today's show. The Marriage Savvy Podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be used to diagnose, treat, or act as medical advice. Always seek the advice of your primary care physician, mental health professional, or qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition and/or mental illness.
Most people are not aware that their own therapists may go to therapy. A lot of people think that we have it all together. A lot of people think that we know everything. I mean, they come into this room and they experience a really calm presence, hopefully. Right? A very inviting presence, like you are the vibe, and people are
Well,
there
I
in
like
the
what you
safe
said too.
space.
They think you sit I had a client tell me this once, like, do you and your husband talk to each other like this all the time? Like, of course not. Of course we don't talk to each other like this all the time.
Yeah, it's more of a you're using the tools, but in your own personality, right?
Yeah, well, you're using the tools, but sometimes you're in trouble before you know you need the tools.
That's true.
Yeah. So, well, you hope your therapist is getting therapy because one, I don't know that I'd want to meet with a therapist who's not been a patient or a client of a therapist.
Why would that be important?
Well, one, I want to know they're doing their work and that they've done their work. Listen, there's some pretty unhealthy therapists out there because they're human too, right? And there's some,
Right.
if they haven't done their work, I mean, they're the ones you're hoping will hold the light so that you can see paths and options. And if they haven't done their own work, I'm going to question the quality of that light,
Mm,
you know?
yeah. I mean, the danger of somebody not doing their own work, what would that be?
Bringing in their own immaturity and bias into the room. And so
Mhm.
getting themselves triggered by your story or about their own, we call it countertransference, but it's when their own stuff comes up and if they haven't done their work, they can't even recognize that their stuff's coming up and they're having an emotional response or reaction to it, which will show up in the therapy room. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't want to hire a therapist to work for me who hasn't done their work. But I will tell you, like therapists make the worst patients too. I mean, I'm terrible in therapy.
Why
I
is that?
because I'm sitting there going, really, is that where you're going to go? I know what you're thinking.
You got
We're
a game plan.
Yeah, we're not going to go that route, you know. And so it's hard to take the hat off and trust the process. Just go with the process and to have faith and trust in the therapist to lead you and guide you through there, even if it feels uncomfortable.
Mhm.
But a lot of therapists will not work with don't want to be the therapist for another therapist. It's intimidating.
Mm.
And two, it's hard to work with people who aren't willing to give into the process. And that's hard to do. That's really hard to do. I'm a terrible therapy patient. I am. I'm a terrible therapy
I,
patient.
I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt that when it really counts, when it's fourth quarter and there's 3 seconds left, and Kim Possible has the ball in her hands, that she's gonna trust the process and shoot and make.
Sometimes. I wonder what my therapist would actually say to that. She'd be like, I have to arm wrestle her every time she gets on. Nah, not really. Honestly, not really. Here's where it shows up for me. What makes me difficult in therapy is being able to be vulnerable enough to tell the truth about it and how I showed up, even if it was really unhealthy. Like that's embarrassing.
Mhm.
That's embarrassing when you're not a therapist, but when you are a therapist and you know better,
Mm.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And
it's like you know the right thing to, or you know the best thing to do, the most mature thing to do.
yeah, yeah, too bad I'm not always the most mature of myself, my most mature self. Like my husband could tell you stories. Like he
Bring
loves,
them on. No, I was kidding.
yeah, please do tell. He would tell me, he, something will happen. I'll pop off something. I'll have a bad day or whatever. And he'll look at me like, really? That's your therapist response?
Oh, wow.
Really? That's what you're going to say? Really? And then I want to be like, then bad words come out of my mouth.
Guys, this is so Kim. Like this is authentic Kim right here. You guys
And
are getting a very vulnerable side of Kim right now.
yeah, yeah, it's
But
true.
because I mean, we're human.
We are human. And I had a client once who I was trying to teach them one of the communication tools we have. I don't remember if it was the feedback wheel or the comfort circle or whatever the heck it was, but we all have different names for them, but they're basically the same thing, which is emotionally regulate yourself.
Hmm.
Like be curious, don't be accusing, don't be defensive, ask questions, don't make assumptions. And the guy looked at me and he goes, "Do you and your husband talk to each other like this all the time?" And I'm like, "No, of course we don't. I mean, we get in trouble too. I get in trouble too." And the difference between me now and me before I was a therapist is I usually catch it much sooner when I'm off or my husband's off and make repair much quicker and don't get stuck in those cycles of not speaking to each other or getting mad or, blowing up and having these knockdown dragouts and then you don't know how to reconnect with each other. So we've saved each other a lot of time and heartache that way, but we still get in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons is because we're just, obviously like we're not perfect, but we're just different people. Like whenever people go into relationships, like though some will try to, have everything in common and believe everything the same, but that's just not how it works. Like when people come together and they have difference of opinions and perspectives, like that is okay. And those things are going to rub up against each other.
Yeah, and that's when it gets exciting too.
Yeah.
I don't want to be with somebody that thinks exactly the echo chamber marriage, where you're with somebody who's so aligned with you or is afraid to differ,
Yeah.
so they don't ever push back.
Yeah. It would be not so interesting after a while.
No, it would be very boring.
Yeah. I want to go back to this idea of countertransference. For people that may not know, that is something that is a very real possibility. I don't know if I should say threat, like in the counseling room or process, but I will say it's something that I've thought about. Countertransference, just from what I understand, and please correct me, is if there is a story or a moment where the client is sharing something and you possibly experience something very similar, then there are feelings that come up within the therapist, uncomfortable feelings of, oh man, I went through this, or I've been through, or I was told that. And instead of continuing to listen and have empathy from their tools and skills, they then have an opportunity to counsel out of their past experience and out of their emotional reaction. What would you say to that?
I say that's pretty spot on. You know, I try really hard, no matter how difficult a client is or how, I mean, some of us are just more likable than others, and some that's true of clients too, right? But I try to find something I really respect and like about each client that I work with. But I had one time that I could not do. This person triggered something in me
Hmm.
that was really hard for me to be present in the room with them and not have negative feelings toward them. And it had nothing to do with the client. It had everything to do with what that client brought up in me from a past trauma.
Hmm.
And so I had to refer that client out because I kept trying to work through my countertransference. And it was early on. This was 15 years ago when I first started all this, but I hadn't done enough of that work to be able to. I mean, I knew it was me. I knew that I was the one getting triggered in it, but it wasn't the client's fault. But it was really hard to be a neutral um, participant in the process when I was having such negative feelings about the client,
Mm.
right?
Do you feel like the client picked up on any of that?
Probably. I mean, I don't know for sure. Um, I don't know. That might have been an interesting conversation to have with the client that I'm having countertransference, but you don't want to make the therapy about you either, right?
Right.
So I don't know how appropriate that would be, but yeah, I just referred them on out.
Yeah.
But that can also be hurtful and confusing for a client to get referred on and them not understand why that is.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know how many times you saw this person, but I'm assuming it's probably just like a handful of times, and then you had to refer out.
Yeah,
I mean, this just goes to show that the therapist is just as human as the client. And once
absolutely.
again, we're all struggling. We're all trying to work on things.
And the even little things like one time I was in a session with a client and suddenly got physically ill, just very, very sick. Like the session started, it was a telehealth session. This was probably about a year ago. It's a telehealth session, and the client's talking, and all of a sudden I feel this heat flush up my body. I thought, oh no. And I'm sitting there and I'm present, and he's talking, and all of a sudden the room starts to go dark. And I thought, I'm going to pass out on this call. And I literally had to say to him, I am so sorry. I am very, very sick. I'm going to have to cut this call short. And he's like, oh, no problem. No problem at all. But that was embarrassing. But we're human. We are human. And sometimes we get sick right in the middle of a session. My supervisor, when I was an intern, told me he had a client in front of him. And all of a sudden, he just felt like he was going to throw up. So he had a trash can by his desk. He said, excuse me just a minute. He threw up in the trash can. And he said, go ahead, continue now.
No way.
Yeah, I think that's hilarious too.
Wow, what a soldier.
What a soldier. Of course, if that had been me as the client, I would have been throwing up after that. I would have been like, that would have been it for me. Would have been two of
Oh,
us throwing up.
oh man.
Yeah, I have a
Well,
very high gag, low gag reflex or high gag reflex, whatever.
yeah.
Doesn't take much.
In my counseling program, one of the first classes that I took was professional orientation, and they were talking about how there's a misconception that therapists heal people, right? Like we go in and heal people. And I remember a couple of students had wrote that on the board. This is what therapists do, and it was so impactful that one, our professor said, "Hey, it's not your responsibility
I was gonna
that."
say I do not want that bird.
Right, right. It's not your responsibility how far or how deep they go into
All right.
doing the work. I mean, imagine if that was your responsibility. It's not, by the way. But if that was, I mean, how enmeshed and how tied would you be to the successes and the failures?
Mhm.
And that just took the weight off of our shoulders, to know that it's not something that we go in and say, I'm gonna fix this problem for you, but instead of that, saying, I'm going to come and be with you in this process. And wherever you want to go, I want to go there with you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I told you the supervisor that I worked with when I was a young intern, we had similar conversations, and he said, your client, you don't get them in the situation that they're in, and you don't get them out.
Oh, that's good.
The only job that you have is to shine the light so that they see all that, right. We get very micro focused sometimes, and we lose the ability to see all of our options. And he's like, your job is just to bring light where there's darkness,
Mm,
and they can find their own way home. And so you just journey with them.
mhm.
And I think that's pretty powerful too. But it's really important to have a healthy therapist that's doing their work and checking themselves because that's who I want journeying with me. Somebody who's done the work.
Yeah.
It's hard. Life's hard.
Oh yeah.
And we have to go in, John, you know this. We have to go in and do a session, even though we just found out 20 minutes before the session that our mom has cancer, or, you know, our husband got laid off, or our wife got laid off, or our kid, did something stupid and wrecked the car. I mean, and we still have to show up and not be like, oh, let me tell you how bad my life is right now to your
Yeah.
client, right? So
Yeah.
you have to know how to be professional, hold that space, and it is a sacred space. And we have to learn how to hold that space. And
Yeah.
so if we aren't well, how can we do that? How can we do that day in and day out if we're not mostly well? Mostly well, most of
Yeah. Yeah. And as much as therapists tell their clients, hey, there's grace and compassion
Mhm.
for you. Like you're just a person who's trying to figure it out. I think, for therapists as well, like we have to tell ourselves, hey man, there's grace and compassion for you as you're trying to figure it out, you know? And just like you said, I can't lead anybody or I can't even be with somebody and shine anything in their life if I haven't tried it myself.
That's right. And we role model good coping skills, good behavior, good um, self-regulation we role model that, and we have to have the ability to access that within ourselves. One of my favorite sessions was with a client. The kind of rapport I build with my clients, I love it. They know I'm human. I know they're human. And who knows what's going to happen in a session sometimes. And it was a kind of a tough session. And I had been teaching him for months about not making assumptions when his wife says or does something and then reacting to it. And I'll be daggum if in one of the sessions something didn't happen. And I looked at him and I made an assumption and went with it. And he looks at me, it's one of my favorite sessions. And he looks at me and he's like, well, Kim Bowen, what would the therapist say? What would the therapist Kim say? Because right now I think I saw the other one. And I said, you sure did. You saw the human Kim. And I owned it. I'm like, I sure did. I stepped in that.
Mm,
I really did. I had a human moment and had a reaction in front of a client, and he called me on it. And I loved that he did. I love that he did. So,
yeah,
because yes, I am human.
yeah. There was with my therapist, I remember going into a session and he was going through like the ABCs of challenging your thoughts, like identifying an activating event and how are you feeling about this and what are you telling yourself and what are the consequences and what do you think could be another possible explanation. And I remember using those same tools uh in a session that I'm facilitating after a session as I help myself regulate. Like, there are things that help me that I've learned from my own therapist, and man, I can't tell you how great it is to
Hmm.
know that someone is helping you grow
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the way that you can help others. Like, it's just,
And a lot of that is the relationship that you have. They tell you in training when you're in school for this stuff, they'll tell you that it's important to be good at what you do, but it's not that important because more than 75% of your clients' success depends on how good the relationship is between you and the client.
mm,
So how skilled you are is only 25% of it, which is really kind of a bummer to me when I think about it. Because we put a lot of money and time to get skilled,
we do.
a lot of money and time to get skilled. But more than 75% of a client's improvement comes from how well the two of you relate.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That is so good. And one of my professors in graduate school told me the same thing. He said, John, you operate in the session out of a life that is receiving from something else. last week, so my therapist, he had to tell me that he was having a baby, because he was going to be out for longer than expected. And he said it's not anything bad. It's just, my wife's having a baby. I said, oh, congrats, congrats. And I remember the session that we finally came back on. He was like kind of spacey, but I could tell that he's been staying up like night after night, taking care of his newborn. So I was like, brother, you have no reason to tell me that you're sorry, bro. You're good. You're good. You're
So,
good.
oh, that's great. That's a great example, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So should you refund the money as a therapist when you're having a human moment?
Should I refund the money if I'm having a human moment?
Yeah, your therapist is spacey that day. They're not really sitting full present on. And listen, I don't say that with judgment. There have been many sessions when I wasn't
Right.
fully.
I probably wouldn't, just because that moment is also part of the relationship
There you
that
go.
that we're having, is that
I
I,
agree.
in some small way, gave grace and compassion and empathy to my therapist, right?
Yeah.
To another human being. So no, I wouldn't ask for a refund.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, to kind of close our session, I did want to talk about authenticity over perfection.
Hmm.
Can I just talk about my first experience in session?
As a
I
therapist or a client.
As a therapist.
Okay.
So I'm at the marriage place, and I remember it's a Saturday. My appointment was at 3 p.m. and I showed up at 9 a.m.
Your appointment was at what? 3 p.m.?
At 3 p.m. and I showed up at 9 a.m. Okay.
Because you were confused or you wanted to get there early?
No, I wanted to get there early.
6 hours early?
I know. But it was because I was reviewing my notes. I was reviewing the stuff that we talked about in meeting, because there's awesome meetings that are had every single Wednesday. And I wanted to dim the lights. I wanted to make sure that my pictures were on the wall. How do I want the couch? I know this is crazy. Like, I'm trying to control everything, right? And I'm there, and I'm trying my best just to reflect what the client is telling me and listen and be empathetic. But I left realizing, because they didn't come back after that first session. They literally just said, "Oh yeah. Thanks for just telling us like what we already know." I guess it's just first session is just you catching up on what we've been doing. I said, I mean, kind of, yeah. And so I was trying to make everything perfect, and they did not come back, and I felt so sad. But but just as a reminder that no matter how perfect you think you need to be,
Yeah.
it really is always going to be about the relationship.
You as the therapist, that's your job, is to make the connection with the client.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was after that where I was told by some lovely supervisors that I didn't need to stress that much or show up that early.
That's exactly right. That's talk about burning yourself out.
Yeah. And that helped, because the next client stayed with me for months. Not 4 months, but FOR months.
4 months. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's our show for today. We hope that you've enjoyed today's discussion. Please remember that the work of personal growth is always worth it, because we as humans are worth it. My name is John Bautista, and you've been listening to the Marriage Savvy Podcast, where we believe that being savvy about your marriage can help you not get finessed by it. We'll see you next time. Stay savvy. Peace.